Nadigalkidayile Nadi. Welcoming Robin sir and Satchidanandan sir for the session.
So Robin, I'm so happy to meet you here. We have been meeting quite often for the last 20 or 30 years. Robin, as already introduced, is one of the most important poets of Manipur. He is bilingual as a person and also as a poet. He writes both in Manipuri and in English. He also translates from Manipuri, not only his own poetry, but poetry by other major Manipuri poets. You know, Manipuri has a great poetic tradition, about which, of course, we will be speaking quite soon. I thought maybe we should start with something about Manipur itself, because I am sure our audience is extremely interested in what has been happening in Manipur. We are living, of course, in a violent time. We hear so much about Gaza, so much about Ukraine, and we have been getting news of violence all around the world. And Manipur has recently been very much on this map of blood that is unfortunately developing also in India. I would like to begin with a poem by Robin, if you don't mind, which appeared in the last Outlook. Native Land. Because this poem, in a sense, speaks for all of us, speaks for Manipur, and speaks for humanity, and speaks about the insensitivity that continuous violence somehow instills in us. Because once you begin to hear more and more about death and bloodshed, about violence, gradually, in the beginning we are shocked, we are very sensitive to all that, but gradually we become extremely insensitive, and it is as if we don't care. So it is about this attitude that Robin primarily writes in this poem. Native Land. First came the scream of the dying in a bad dream. Then the radio report and a newspaper. 6 shot dead, 25 houses razed, 16 beheaded with hands tied behind their backs inside a church. As the days crumbled and the victors and their victims grew in number, I hardened inside my thickening hide until I lost my tenuous humanity. I ceased thinking of abandoned children inside blazing huts, still waiting for their parents. If they remembered their grandmother's tales of many winter hearts at the hour of sleeping death, I didn't want to know. If they ever learned the magic of letters and the women heavy with seed, their soft bodies mound down like grain stalk during their lyric harvest. If they wore wild flowers in their hair while they waited for their men, I didn't care anymore. I burned my truth with them and buried uneasy manhood with them. I did mutter on some far-off day, there are limits, but when the days absorbed the butchers, I continue to live as if nothing happened. So this poem speaks about Manipur, speaks in some sense about contemporary world and contemporary India that is continuously, haunted by violence of all kinds. And it certainly speaks, as I said, about the kind of insensitivity that violence finally brings, that gradually we grow indifferent. Okay, so many dead. And the dead people just turn into statistics. 100 people died or 1,000 people died, and the numbers even don't make a difference. That's what always happens in wars and in situations of violence. So now that I have started with this poem, Robin, I and all of us, in fact, would like to know more about what has been happening in Manipur, because we have got different versions of it from different kinds of newspapers and news channels, and we'll be very happy to get some kind of a first-hand information about what was happening. Of course, we know the kind of violence that has been happening there. Of course, we know that there has been a lot of bloodshed. Of course, we know that women were attacked and children were attacked, as it always happens in riots and in wars. But how would you look at this whole incident? And what is you have already, of course, your reactions embodied in some sense in this poem, but how would you respond to what has been happening in Manipur as a poet, and of course as a citizen of India and somebody who has been living in Manipur for long?
Thank you, Satchidanandan. It's an honor to be in conversation with you. I'm an admirer of your poetry, and I'm always beholden to you, for your vital support, of all these years. This poem, which you just read now, has to do with another ethnic class which happened, I don't remember the exact year, in the 90s. And it is extremely unfortunate that another ethnic class, of course ethnic classes have been happening in Manipur and in different parts of the Northeast, So history, it seems, is repeating itself. History is being written, I think, ironically, with the full awareness that it will repeat itself again and again. If you'll bear with me, I wrote a poem recently, which has to do with the present, present crisis in Manipur. The poem is titled Suffering. Suffering. I have read of this universal condition. I told myself I knew a bit of it, having had little brushes with it. Then, on perfect, out of the blue days of evil, the indescribable voice of a young man whimpering for his life while being bludgeoned and then shot. A simple father sobbing for his simple child and wife, burnt alive in an ambulance that raised any hope. The horrific shame and ordeal of a young woman paraded starkly naked before sadistic eyes. The mute agony of an 80-year-old woman frozen on her charred face. The blunt bullet blow to a woman who had already lost her mind when shot in the face. A wife howling for her husband's life, even as his killers mocked her over the phone. Already a husband, a father, a lover, a mere human, I thought I could relive these pains as if to know them, as if I can prepare myself if any such pain should strike me out of the blue. But realize I cannot categorize suffering at all, and there may be hitherto undiscovered pains. This cold gift on our day of birth, which may yet indeed be universal. I think concerning my poetry, I've been called an overtly political poet sometimes, which I'm not. But concerning poetry, concerning my own poetry, I have been responding to my realities. Of course, reality is subjective, so to my subjective realities. And unfortunately, politics has become, everyone's business. And in the Northeast, in Manipur, the gun has become everyone's business. I'm not in a position to talk about the history and the politics of the agonizing politics of Manipur and the Northeast. But because I cannot close my eyes and shut my ears, to the events that are happening around me, so I have responded as a poet in my own way. So what can I say about Manipur? It's beyond my beyond my thinking, actually, and of course it has to do with maybe with colonial history, with the fact that Manipur was a princely kingdom before, and the fact that it's home to so many communities, and assertion of ethnic identities. So ethnicity, or and this dream.
Can you all hear? Should you hold it close?
Oh, okay. So can you hear me? Yeah, okay. And the dream of people, communities to create their own homelands. Unfortunately, so it is assertion of identity. Most of the communities in the Northeast, suffer from this fear of losing their identities, and when they start asserting their identities, assertion of identities unfortunately comes always at the cost of peace. So, as I mentioned, this longing for certain communities to create their own homelands, and unfortunately, that would lead to friction and conflict with the neighboring community. So it has affected me in many ways, and I mentioned this to my friends, that sometimes the fear of homelessness has become real, and if you bear with me, I'll read the title poem of my collection, My Invented Land. So my Invented Land, that's the poem, which is a title poem of my latest collection, which appeared last year. My Invented Land. And there are references to my childhood and this fear of homelessness, as I mentioned, then the agonizing political situation in Manipur, my invented land. My native soil was created from tiny sparks that clung to grandmother's earthen pot, which conjured savory dishes I've been looking for all my life in vain. My homeland has no boundaries. At cockcrow, one day, it found itself inside a country to its west. On rainy days, it dreams, looking east. You've heard about the Eastern Gate, looking east. On rainy days, it dreams, looking east, when its seditionists fight to liberate it from truth. My people have disinterred their alphabet, burned down decrepit libraries in a last puff of nationalism. Even as a hairstyle of native women has been allowed to become extinct. My native place has not been Christian yet. My homeland, a travelogue without end, a plate that will always be greedy, but got rice mixed with stones. My home has young people who found their dreams in a white substance, and old that transplanted their eyes. It has leaders who have disappeared into their caricatures. My home is a gun pressed against both temples, a knock on a night that has not ended, a torch lit long after the theft, a sonnet about body counts, undoubtedly raped, definitely abandoned in a tryst with destiny. The tryst with destiny is a reference to Nehru's speech, the midnight speech, the famous midnight speech. So here in this poem, I've been, toying with the idea of homelessness, and as I mentioned, my homeland has no boundaries. Then about this rather dubious concept of indigeneity. So I have been. That is why I have referred to this imaginary homeland, and there are references to. Again, I think many of you perhaps don't know about the terrible curse of drug addiction that we've been suffering from for many decades now. So I have these lines. My home has young people who found their dreams in a white substance. The white substance is heroin. And perhaps some of you who've been reading the news would know that the Golden Triangle has shifted to Manipur. So the earlier Golden Triangle perhaps does no longer exist. So it has shifted to Myanmar and Manipur. So the white substance is heroin, and in fact they use heroin which has been refined many times. So it's the most lethal drug that we have now. Just one dose is enough to get you addicted for life. They call it number 4. So, and here I have used a phrase that I borrowed from a Manipuri poet, a Meitei poet, who told me that to write poetry in Manipur is like having two guns pressed against your temples. One gun is of the state, and the other gun is of the non-state. So he means of course I'm sure you've heard about the infamous the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, the AFSPA. So that would be the gun of the state. APSPA. Then you have the gun of the non-state insurgents, rebels, terrorists, whatever you call them. That's...
In fact, Manipur burst into our imagination also, first through Irom Sharmila's heroic struggle against OSPA. Well, that was also one of the many times I visited Manipur along with my friends to meet her and greet her. And since then, Manipur has been in the news, and now, and all for wrong reasons. And now once again, Manipur has been in the news. We hear so much about the battles between tribes, and we really do not have a very clear picture about that, because it is often presented as a kind of fight between Meiteis and the Kukis, and somewhere Nagas also seem to be in the picture. But I think Manipur probably has a history of battles between tribes. Because as you know, I have been to Manipur many times, and I've seen each hill is occupied by a tribe mostly. There are small tribes and big tribes, and there are majority tribes and minority tribes. So is it something that is played up by some forces, or is there a real and genuine kind of fight, conflict between different communities and different tribes?
As you mentioned, Manipur is home to many communities or tribes, and around 38 or 39, you know. And of course, they're all, it's not just Manipur, but all over the Northeast, these tribes have been in constant feuds with each other. So I'm sure many of you would know that maybe just as recently as about 100 years ago, many of us were headhunters. So, but of course, as I mentioned, I'm not really conversant with history or with politics. But I think it has to do, if you talk about the recent conflicts, it has to do with the creation of homelands, actually. So the first poem that you kindly read, it has to do actually with the Naga Kuki conflict. Although, unfortunately, I have to mention the names of the communities, And my community, the Meiteis, I mentioned the erstwhile, kingdom, so, and maybe we still have nostalgic, many Meiteis have nostalgic longings for that, for that community. And again, there's a whole history behind it, how the king was forced to sign the merger agreement with the Indian government. But I think recently it has to do with, as I said, with claims and counterclaims about overlapping territory, but the creation of homelands. So the Nagas also want their own homeland. The Kukis, now they want their own homelands. Then the Meiteis believe that they had their own home, their own kingdom, and now it's been gifted away or been, treacherously taken away by by the Indian government, and again, it's a colonial kind of legacy that we have inherited, this divide between the hills and the plains in Manipur. So it's very unfortunate, actually, that ironically, many of us, almost all the communities in the Northeast, we have common origins. We speak more or less the same language, the Tibeto-Burman school of languages. So we have many words, stories, tales in common. But now, unfortunately, because of this assertion of identity and creation of homelands, we're now, instead of looking at our similarities, we're only trying to find differences so that we can assert our own identity, we can build our own homelands. So this is the fallout, I think, primarily of what we're seeing in the Northeast, and young people again have been radicalized, and ethnocentrism, I think, is the root cause, I think, behind this turmoil.
Can I say there is a kind of conflict between nostalgia and desire?
Yeah.
So a group of people who had lost their kingdom, the Meiteis, still longing for the lost kingdom, and the Kukis and the Nagas and other kinds of tribes who are dreaming of their own country.
Yeah.
So the identity crisis always lead to linguistic crisis too. Even in South India we have examples of that, because some people want some words not to be used at all in a particular language. When you begin, for example, to trace your racial origins, you say that these words do not really belong to our language. Actually, in my experience, these kinds of conflicts impoverish language, because they take away from your language a lot of words which you had thought were yours, which now some people say are no more yours. So maybe it has also caused a kind of crisis in Manipuri language, because maybe there are some Naga words or Kuki words in Meitei, and Meitei words, of course, because it is the majority language too, Meitei words in Kuki and Naga languages. And once these words are taken away, the language also, all the languages in some sense also become impoverished. So maybe this is time when you should also speak a little about Manipur and Manipuri language, because there is a return of the Meitei script. I have been watching this development over the years, because Manipuri didn't probably have a script, or it was being written in other scripts, and Meitei script has been reinvented and brought back, and Manipuri is now mostly, I think, written in Meitei, if my understanding is not wrong. So what do you say about, or how do you look at this development, this linguistic development of the history of the Manipur language, and how it has been affected, and how the history of Manipur is perhaps being rewritten? So you already mentioned that, probably it was reluctantly that the Manipur king signed the agreement, the treaty, to be part of independent India. A situation which is not very different from that of Kashmir, where we had a very similar situation, where perhaps the king signed the agreement, but the people were not completely in agreement. And so I think that is how often a nation is made, partly by violence and partly by consensus. And so Manipur was not in that sense a part of India. Well, it agreed to join, the king agreed to join, but not necessarily all the people wanted Manipur to remain a separate kind of small country. And now that there are also these demands for further divisions of Manipur into a Kuki land or another piece for Nagas, even though there is a Naga land, and maybe for other tribes. So, how do you look at the impact of all these conflicts on Manipuri language? And because my people are not very much aware of the history of Manipuri language, maybe they would, not that you should explain the history, but something about the development of Manipuri language and Manipuri script and all that, that would be of some interest to many of us.
Yeah. Actually, the story goes that the king was actually put under house arrest. He was in Shillong. He was put under house arrest and he was forced to sign the merger agreement. But concerning the script and the language, you know, we already have a script. It's not invented. We already have a script. And I don't remember the exact year, but when the Meitei king wanted to, became a Hindu, there was this attempt to Hinduize and to do away with in fact, again, I mean, these are stories, but I'm sure it has been recorded also historically. The Brahmin, I think, they say he came from Sylhet, or some say from Bengal. Sylhet, of course, was part of, it's part of Bengal now. He, in connivance with the king, so this is very interesting. Why is script and a language seen as a threat? If you want to, impose something new, I mean, along with religion. So they gathered all the books. The king, asked, the subjects to bring all to bring all the books on pain of death, So and gathered all the books and burnt them. But a few books survived, and the script survived. So now they are trying to revive the script, actually. So that is how it happened. And so we have a fairly long history of writing, literature, maybe 3,000 years, maybe. So, and the books, the ones that survive, they are being, they are written on the, what did they use? I don't remember exactly. On wood and maybe on leaves. I saw the manuscript that I preserved.
We also used to have manuscripts written on palm leaves.
Palm leaves,
maybe
something like that. I think we use bark. I think bark. So the script survived, and now the script is being revived, and when we burnt our books and did away with our script, the script that was brought in is actually a combination of Bengali and Assamese. So I still don't know how to use, how to write the original Manipuri script. Manipuri, again, it occurred to me that it's a little rather contestable term. We can't talk in, actually it's a little contradictory to speak in terms of a Manipuri language. Actually, Manipur should mean, or Manipuri should mean all the communities who belong to Manipur. So what I'm trying to say is, as a Manipuri, I never refer to my script or to my language as the Manipuri language or Manipuri script. The name of my community is Meitei, so we call it Meiteilon or Meiteilon. So the script survived, and the books, some of the books re-emerged. They were in hiding all these centuries, and now they're being, so there is but about you mentioned something about these people who have been trying to do away with. So we do have purists and the revivalists, who've been trying to weed out foreign words, but they're not words from the other the languages of the other tribes, but they're mostly Sanskrit. So the revivalists, they feel that maybe the language has been corrupted by Bengali, by Hindi and Sanskrit. So and English to some extent. So they've been trying to weed out these words, but not the native words, because the native words are similar. As I said, we belong to the Tibeto-Burman school of languages. So we have many words in common with the other communities. For instance, I found out, we have more words in common, say maybe with the Mizos. So, and the Mizos are very close to the Kukis. And also with the Naga communities, like the Tangkhuls. And again, surprisingly, with, because geographically we're quite far removed from each other, with the Ao language and Meitei Lon, So this cannot be mere coincidence. So the belief that all these communities from many of these communities, tribal communities from the Northeast, is that we have actually migrated from, many of us, there's a consensus that we had migrated from China and maybe other parts of Southeast Asia, but mostly from China. So the Mizos, the Nagas, the Meiteis, we have migration myths actually. Yeah, still preserved in the old written myths actually, in the written stories actually in the original Meitei language.
Are books printed in the Meitei script?
Yeah, now with the books have been printed in the Meitei script. Yes.
Maybe you should also say something about Manipuri poetry. Of course, I know Kandabari poets. Some of us have read them through translations like Ibo Pishak, Tangjom Ibo Pishak and Ibo Pishak Singh and other people. And what about younger Manipuri poets? We know little about them, and because Ibo Pishak and other poets have been translated, and at least some of us may know something about their poetry. But would you say something about the Manipuri poetic scene today, generally?
Yeah, I'm a little out of touch with the new generation.
But even the older one, because many of us do not know sufficiently enough about Manipuri poetry and its history and the major pioneers of Manipuri poetry and all that. So that could be of help too.
Yeah. Can I give you a brief historical background? This has to do with the contemporary or modernist Manipuri poetry. But as I mentioned, we have been writing poetry for over the centuries, and we have poetry in the original Meitei script, and I remember again, but it will be an archaic Manipuri, so it's difficult for me to understand or grasp, archaic Meitei Lon. But we had books about. It's in poetry about flowers, an entire catalog of flowers, and how different flowers are used for different occasions, for worship, for all kinds of things, for romance, for worship. So a book on flowers, then book on fire. So different kinds of forms of fire again, fire is also maybe worshipped, but different kinds of forms of fire. So this was the ancient part of the ancient Manipuri poetry. But coming to modernist Manipuri poetry, Manipur was a part of the forgotten theater of the Second World War. I think again many of us would not know that the fiercest battle of the Second World War were actually fought in. This has been acknowledged by the Allied countries, by the UK and European countries. Fiercest battle during the Second World War is actually fought in Nagaland and in Manipur, in Kohima and in Imphal. So people, historians refer to this part of the country as the forgotten theater of the Second World War. So Manipur was a part of the forgotten theater of the Second World War, and the seeds of Manipuri poetry were perhaps sown amidst the ravages of the Great War. Hizam Irabat, the socialist poet, is considered a trailblazer because of his revolutionary language and subject matter. So he wrote during the war years. He's a communist, close friend of Hemango Biswas. So he has lines, just two lines, describing the war, actually. There's so many stories to tell, actually, about the war and how it affected. My grandmother used to talk about the war, and so this is Irabat. Vulture aeroplanes are on the wing. Wolf siren is hooting. It's quite a scene. I'm sorry, I can't help but read some of the lines from.
It's also meant for reading.
Yeah. So this is an old poem that I wrote. It's titled "To a Valley Known as Imphal," and I refer to crumbling palaces and in the Second World War too. Here in this poem, red flaking bricks and mortar of palaces, buried rivers and humiliated freedom fighters from the Great War bring to mind a king who tried to evade an ominous prophecy, only to be bitten by a snake god. And two lovers, actually a Muslim and a Meitei, a Muslim boy and a Meitei girl, and two lovers hailing from different faiths, embracing each other across the banks of a cleaving river in a small landlocked valley. My departed grandmother told stories of bomb-hollowed walls and Japanese soldiers who vanished into the jungle with someone's rice pot, and Negroes from the Allied forces who tried to molest an aunt. Whatever happened to all the mislaid years, no one cares. When the bombs rained, my people ran in all directions, hugging mountain slopes, trampling rice fields. Many perished in bewilderment. But the war was not ours, and our race did not perish. We have become civilized in lieu of a barbaric past. One cockcrow, we found ourselves belonging to a country freed at midnight. Okay, so I was talking about Manipuri poetry. So Manipur, a one-time princely kingdom with visions of grandeur, which fell into the clutches of the British colonial regime and ultimately freed, only to become a part of the Indian Union under dubious circumstances. Manipur became just another corrupt and disillusioned state under the new dispensation. After the trauma of the Second World War, there were distinct transformations in the political and social life of this erstwhile feudal state. Poets began responding to the altered circumstances by breaking with their romantic predecessors and choosing a diction that will suit the times. They became more inward-looking and consequently tried to adapt the world to themselves by adopting ironic and alienated stances. In short, these modernist Manipuri poets fashioned a skeptical post-independence poetics in which irony, satire, and detachment or confrontation became the prime means of self-discovery. So the new poetry is distinguished by a continuous probing into the social condition and the fractured psyche of modern Manipur. It was during the early 70s that a group of young poets tried to accomplish something radical with a poetic agenda in mind. They were bohemian in their outlook, indecorous, and deliberately tried to shock their readers by mocking everything which seemed sacrosanct or sedate. So Manipuri poetry seems to be at a crossroads now. New volumes are being published each year, and the churning of the seas continues with the hope that the great poem will come. Many poets seem to be preoccupied with insistent realities such as ethnic violence, corruption, extortion, terrorism, oppression, and drug addiction. As a result, experimentation seems to have slowed down a little. In contemporary Manipuri poetry, there is a predominance of images of bullets, blood, then mother, the color red, and paradoxically, flowers too. A poet from Imphal told me of how they have been honing the poetry. He calls it the poetry of survival. The poetry of survival with guns pressed to both temples, the guns of revolution and the gun of the state, as I mentioned. Hardly anyone writes romantic verses or speaks about disturbing aspects of sexuality or anything carnal. There also seems to be a dearth of the confessional or the autobiographical, and an impersonal, detached mannerism seems to be the norm. Is it because contemporary poetry, contemporary Manipuri poetry, contemporary Manipuri poets are absorbed in writing the poetry of survival? That's a rhetorical question. But poets also have to write about the here and now, and writing about it lends a sense of immediacy and vividness to their poetry. Thankfully, a few fine poets have moved beyond merely recording events and seem to have internalized the complex conflict between themselves and the milieu. In Manipur, when the reality becomes oppressive, these poets frequently seek refuge in absurdist irony, often directed towards oneself. They seek refuge in parody and in satire. It is a rejection by these poets of the extreme realism I have mentioned. And they, in turn, also reveal an inclination towards the surreal. So, if it's all right, can I read the
I think, Robin, you should read one of the poems, your own poems that you love most, and then we can open it up to the audience for some questions.
Okay.
This is the timer shows it is.
All right. Okay. Then I will read one of my poems then. Yeah. This poem is titled. It's titled from the Book of Grievances, and it says something about some of the subjects that I touched upon, and here I'm also I've referred to other communities embroiled in these conflicts, ethnic conflict, and also with the conflict with the center. From the book of Grievances. From here, day weeps in the failing light, and the evenings are misty-eyed. The eaves drip pastoral dew. Dark green are leaves of June, hung on the clothesline of rain. The hills remain impassive, with an old reputation of silence, and none knows about our dreams, muffled now as if by blaring progress, put to shame before ornate streets. In the evening, proud hearts that have learnt to die well return in the bronze dusk. But something has been buried, something akin to hope and dreams. Our souls shall not speak. Not an indignant word shall escape our lips. And if they cannot hear the silent moan of our hearts, we will not implore pity. Implacable death came upon us, and the finest memories are of no worth. Proud ancestral names, faithful women with raven hair, the heroic struggles of our small lives. What is our tradition and our history but only death with a long memory? For how long shall we make our forefathers walk as spirits? Today, with grief sitting on our hearts, we will sing of clouds that did not come home. We will sing the songs of those banished in mountains. We will drink deep from bamboo mugs and wipe remembrance from our lips. From a trajectory of dark deeds, our days fly toward destinations in uncharted galaxies of time. Broken skylines clutch the hills, bringing a momentary fear of the earth shaker who turns violently in his sleep. As we sauntered along overgrown trails, the hill's night sang to us, but concealed its midst of famine and pestilence. A party of egrets followed us in the fog one January morning. When we stole into the fog's body, we again entered our history, leaving all milestones behind. In these native villages, beneath the bamboo and watching hills, seated on mats of clouds, we could see the glint of paddy fields, gripped by rain and mist. Once we sprinkled mutual libations to create these jade and emerald fields. My love, something I cannot name, seems to be ashamed of our dances. Even as we hide our roots like gnarled limbs, we begin to disown what we cherish. Fidelity, openness, daring. We must learn quickly before the devious ones mutilate our names carved on monoliths. Time ran out in Oinam, in Ukrul. These are places where terrible human rights violations took place. So time ran out in Oinam, in Ukrul, when they who gave us a republic brought reconcentrados from the Americas, watched impassively the smoking fields, prodded with clubs the bruised vagina, the shocked testis. We became impotent in the face of mortification. Today, we will bury tradition's fetus. We will not weave unparalleled history when there was no homespun yarn. We, the worthy henchmen of tyranny, will embrace the villain's principles. We will desert honor and a vain hope for peace will burn our hills. When we scream and our throats rasp, we will spit wanton civilization in the eye. As east meets west in the hills crack, blind Venus roots grope under earth, we turn our own perpetrator, victim of our own dark deeds. It is all very fine, long sacrificing brother of the night. Your state-of-the-art rifle commands awe. When you procure your ignominious arsenal, can you smother the sibilant whispers in the valley and the hills? Can you answer the cries of children and widows? You singe the flower of youth with a pious lamp in your veins, but our homes have been herded away, for our fields lie fallow, and our young and old spread maimed hands for the intractable belly, the naked skin. Okay, thank you.
So we had an idea of the conflicts in Manipur, the myths that still survive, the hopes that the Manipuris still hold, And indeed, an idea about the Manipuri language, the revival of the Meitei script, and of Manipuri poetry in our times. We have just 4 minutes left, and if you have a single question, maybe we can take one question. Yeah. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Robin, for giving a lot of insights into Manipur as a region. Of course, we know that Manipur is violent right now. We hear through media or see through media that a lot of violence and conflicts are happening there. And most of the poetry, what you have recited here, would have covered the past 30, 40 or 50 years. And it presents a bleak picture, your feelings. For me, it's darkness. But I'm sure that in the past, there would have been a bright time for Manipur, probably under the king, which you had referred, mighty king. And is there anything that you can tell us regarding those peaceful time, beautiful time, something better? All we understand and we appreciate the feelings of the Meiteis, an average Manipuri, all those things are there. But then, was there a better time which existed earlier in the past? Could you tell us something about that? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, but when you talk about better times, I think we all know that it's never constant, good times and bad times. So we had periods in Meitei history also, when art and art try, for example, the Rasa Lila, which the Meiteis perform in their own way. It was, again, I'm very bad with dates. It was created, during the time of King Bhagyachandra. Again, very bad with history. So we've had moments of maybe relative peace, and then again, at one particular period, the Burmese actually had taken over Manipur, and for 7 years they were in Manipur. It's called we refer it to that period as the 7 years devastation. And in fact, now people are talking that the 7 years devastation has come back again. So it fluctuates. So relative moments of peace, and as I mentioned, when arts thrived, but we know that in history, peace and then war, peace and war. It's an endless cycle. But of course, we cannot have any period of complete peace and stability. It cannot go on. So I mean, that's how I see it. Okay.
Yeah, whenever I talk to somebody from Kashmir or from Manipur, I feel we people in Kerala can hardly understand the kind of the bloodshed and the violence that has been happening in both those places, and maybe a few other places too, because we have never faced such conflicts. Even the world wars have not touched us much. So our pain sometimes seems feigned, not real. The pain that you find in our poetry, it is either a second-hand pain because we heard something, we read some news, and obviously as sensitive writers, we reflect on the pain of other people too. But the kind of impossible inhumanity that Manipur has been passing through, or Kashmir has been passing through, is very hard to imagine for somebody living in Kerala, which in spite of minor conflicts is still a land of peace. So that's what Robin was saying, that there are hardly moments of peace. There have been some intervals of peace, but mostly it has been devastation, destruction, bloodshed, conflicts between various kinds of tribes, and most of the good memories belong more to the myth than to the reality. Our time is over.
Yes, sir. Time is over. Yes, we can close. Thank you.
Excuse me. Can I just take one more question. Just one simple question, because, you know, do you feel, simple question, is there an identity crisis among the people of Manipur, or perhaps the people of all of Northeast, about their ethnic origin?
I mentioned this already, you know, there is this fear of loss of identity, you know, whether it's real or imagined, you know, I cannot say.
Yeah, in fact, he, in the earlier discussion, he had mentioned that there is this question of identity, the Meiteis, the Nagas, the Kukis, the various kinds of tribes. There is an attempt to return to their supposed original identity, which has also caused a kind of destruction of the language to some extent, or a depletion of vocabulary in the Manipuri language. So yes, there are, as he very well said, it can be an imagined conflict or a real conflict. There is this question of identity has been coming up again and again in the history of Manipur. Our time is over, and now we are running on minus time, and I think we should end the conversation here. Thank you, Robin, for this wonderful conversation, for giving us so much of ideas about the language and the...
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robin, for...
Always a pleasure talking to you, Satchidanandan.